Hello, hello. Bill here from the Blue Envelope channel. Well, the other day I was rewatching an alt-worldly video with the title David Splain Hates Women and Children. And it's sort of a review of the 2022 convention. Very funny video. It's one of my favorites on the channel. But anyways, there's a talk where David Splain expresses some really strong opinions about what employers are looking for these days.
What's one of the most annoying traits an employee can have? Ask any boss. When the worker is asked to do something, he replies, "That's not my job."
And so Jake makes the point in his video, which is the exact same thing that I was thinking when I first heard that talk, which is, when's the last time this guy actually held down a job that earned a paycheck? So I thought, hey, let's find out. When's the last time that each governing body member actually worked secularly? So I'll put a link in the description to an article on jw.org, and it has very handy links to the biographies or autobiographies of each governing body member currently. And that's the link you'd want to use if you want to check the facts.
Now, if they just take the time to check the facts.
Okay, so we'll just kind of go from, I guess, the most recent appointments to the governing body, and we'll just work our way backwards. So in 2023, there were two men that were appointed to the governing body. The first of them was named Gage Flegel. So Gage went to Bethel in 1991, and so that would put his last paycheck at 33 years ago. That would be nice, not to have punched a clock in 33 years. Not saying that we all want to be freeloaders necessarily, but it would be nice to have that option, to have the security that you don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. Kind of have that financial freedom to choose when to work and to choose satisfying work that you're actually interested in doing. The other appointment in 2023 was named Jeffrey Winder, and Winder became a Bethelite in 1990. So he has been living rent-free off the donations of Jehovah's Witnesses for 34 years now. Okay, next we have Kenneth Cook. He was appointed to the governing body in 2018. Ken went to Bethel in 1984, and so that means he hasn't earned a paycheck in 40 years. Mark Sanderson is next most recent. He was appointed to the governing body in 2012. Now, Mark was a special pioneer for 7 years, and I'm not going to count that time because at least the special pioneers I knew in my congregation, they did get cash from the society, but they also worked a part-time job. So he was a special pioneer, but he became a Bethelite in 1997. So Mark is actually the governing body member that has worked most recently. He only quit working secularly a mere 27 years ago. Okay, in 2005, two men were appointed to the governing body. Now, one of them, Anthony Morris, is still alive, but in 2023, he was removed from his position by a unanimous vote of the other members of the governing body.
And the brothers are looking for a unanimous decision. At times, it may seem like this is a solid adjustment, but if it's not unanimous, it just might not be time yet for it to be revealed. So it's not forced. The matter is set aside.
So Anthony Morris is gone, but the second man from 2005 is still on the governing body. That's Jeffrey Jackson. Jeffrey was also a special pioneer for about 4 years, and then in 1979, he was appointed as a missionary. So he was a missionary for a while and then eventually was called into Bethel. And so counting from his time as a missionary in 1979, Jeffrey Jackson's last paying job would have been 45 years ago. In 1999, there was a class of 4 men appointed to the governing body. Now, one of them, Guy Pierce, has since died, but the other 3 are still alive and still serving on the governing body. The first we'll mention is Samuel Hurd. He was appointed as a circuit overseer in 1965, eventually became a district overseer, and then was called into Bethel. And so Sam Hurd has been living off Jehovah's Witness donations for 59 years now. The second man from 1999 was Stephen Lett. Now, Stephen Lett had some intermittent periods of full-time service. He spent 4 years as a Bethelite during the Vietnam War to avoid the draft. Then later, he spent some time as a special pioneer. But we'll start counting in 1979, which was when he was appointed as a circuit overseer. He did that for a while and then was eventually called into Bethel. And so like Jeffrey Jackson, the last time Stephen Lett punched a time clock was 45 years ago. And the third man appointed in 1999 was David Splain. Now, David Splain graduated from Gilead in 1966 and became a missionary. Later, he was a circuit overseer, and later still, he was called into Bethel. And so the last time David Splain was gainfully employed was 58 years ago. And last but by no means least, we have Garrett Loesch. He's the senior member of the governing body currently. He was appointed in 1994 to that body. Garrett Loesch was also a special pioneer for a couple of years, and then in 1963, he was appointed as a circuit overseer. He later became a district overseer and then was eventually called to Bethel. And so when we do the math...
You heard right. Do the math.
Loesch has been living all expenses paid off the donations of Jehovah's Witnesses for 61 years now and counting. So those are the 9 members currently on the governing body, and I think these data help us understand how the governing body today can be so out of touch with modern life and its expenses and inflation, why it is that despite already owning not 1, not 2, but 3 separate movie studios, they're planning to build a humongous 4th movie studio that will take 1,000 people to run it. It helps explain why they still strongly discourage higher education for young witnesses graduating high school. When the governing body members last had jobs 40, 50, even 60 plus years ago, yeah, maybe back then you could still support a family with just one parent with a high school education working full time. That is not the case anymore. These are men who haven't even had to do a load of laundry themselves in decades.
When there's work to be done, someone has to do it. Do I think that I'm so special that someone else has to look after it?
The Watchtower Society might not own its own private jets, but every year the governing body take all expenses paid trips to exotic parts of the world where they visit their adoring fans. Every convenience they could possibly imagine or want is handed to them for free. Yet David Splain, and as a reminder, the last time David Splain held down a paying job was back in 1966. David Splain has the audacity to lecture rank and file witnesses about how if you're broke because you're unemployed or underemployed, it's your own dang fault.
When some in the world lose their job, they remain unemployed for a long time. They can't pay the bills. Yet there are job opportunities all around them. But they consider those jobs beneath them.
Oh, the audacity of including a line like that.
It also helps us understand why in the 40 years since 1984, there has only been a single governing body member who didn't hold that position until their death. That was Anthony Morris, who, as we mentioned, was unanimously voted off the governing body by the other members last year.
Under prayer, and when there is unanimous accord, then the brothers take that as Jehovah's direction and then are happy to share it with the brotherhood.
And in fact, only 4 men total have left the governing body prior to their death in the entire 53 years that the governing body arrangement has existed. And there have been a lot of governing body members. There were periods when the governing body had more than 20 men serving simultaneously on it. So why did only 4 leave early? No doubt about it, it'd be tough to leave that all expenses paid lifestyle when really the only requirement, the main requirement in return is that you be a company man, that you never rock the boat, you never raise any objection to what your religion is doing. And so even if some governing body members have perhaps become a bit disillusioned after a while and are maybe just going through the motions these days.
I asked to retire at 80. The governing body said, "Not until you lose it." I said, well...
It's a scary thought for them to leave that beautifully gilded cage and fly away to a very uncertain future. And that's on top of all the usual fears, well-founded fears, I might add, that every witness who leaves the religion has of losing all their friends, their family, and their status in their faith community. And so for these and other reasons, I'm sure we're going to continue to get plenty more out of touch and out of date advice about jobs and education from governing body members well into the future.
And lastly, on this point, do not get distracted with higher education. So, of course, the universities want our children. Of course, school counselors are going to push you to go to college. You're desirable to them because of your training by Jehovah's organization, but do not let them trick you into thinking that higher education is going to make you happy.
Do not let them trick you.
I have long said, the better the university, the greater the danger.
So most of the college students go for that reason, to have a higher living standard. Some go for the fame, but most go for the money. Sometimes the children wouldn't even go, but the parents push them to go. They want to be able to say, my son is a doctor. So is this really the thing to pursue this side of Armageddon? Now some have good motives. If they do, we will not judge them. It's a personal decision. Some pioneer throughout college, and they have good motives. But we have lost really too many to the world already. And so it is a kind of a danger.
Try to relax your anus, your shoulders.
In high school in Glenorchy, in the island state of Tasmania, I won several awards for academic achievement. Then, however, it came time for a serious decision. Would I accept a scholarship to go to university? As much as I loved books and learning, I am grateful that my mother had helped me to acquire a stronger love, one for Jehovah. So with my parents' consent, I left school and started pioneering in January 1971 at the age of 15, having received the required school certificate.
Do you remember that 18-year-old young brother who is trying to decide which path to take? Well, that was me some years ago. I made the decision, just like so many other brothers and sisters around the world, to turn down that scholarship, to give up university, and go directly into the full-time service. That is a decision that I have never regretted. That is a decision that I will never regret.
I'm an old man, filled with regret, waiting to die alone. I'll come back for you.